I've searched the whole of YouTube for a review of the Volkswagen Polo that doesn't make constant childish references to polo mints or puns about horse-based sports activities, and I just couldn't find one. So I've decided to make my own. This is my very sensible review of the Volkswagen Polo, in which I won't mince my words or make stupid jokes. What? The Polo is the baby version of the Volkswagen Golf, essentially, and it costs from £20,000 for an entry-level life model like this one, although this has got 5,000 miles on it and it's 6 months old, so it costs £1,500 less than that. It's the 6th generation of the Polo, and it was facelifted in 2021 to look like this. Some models got an LED light bar across the front, they all got an updated interior with a digital dashboard, and they also got headlights with a kink in them. When it was facelifted back in 2021, the Polo got updated with these new slimmer taillights to mimic the ones on the Mark 8 Golf. But to me, they look a bit like those foam fingers that you get at NFL games. But hey, I think it looks quite sharp. Now, inside the boot, you get a 351 litre space, which is big enough for most small family duties, but the one on a Fabia is 380 litres, so pick that if you want a very similar car with more luggage space. But that said, the boot is quite clever. You've got this boot floor which stays up when you lift it up, so you can chuck stuff in the spare wheel well, because it doesn't have a spare wheel, or you can drop it down and open up, he says, even more boot space. I think I should get the horse to present, because that was terrible. For a car that rivals the Ford Fiesta, it feels and looks really premium in here, as you'd expect from a Volkswagen. I've got a digital dashboard as standard. It's 8 inches in this Life model. It goes up to 10 inches in the R-Line version. All Polos get an 8-inch infotainment system, which has got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. In an entry-level car, that is just blowing my mind. Now, because this isn't as expensive as a Golf, you don't get the brand's fancy, expensive steering wheel with the haptic buttons, but that is a good thing. This is better because they're physical buttons. You don't accidentally knock them when you're doing a 3-point turn. Don't accidentally put the Barbie soundtrack on all the time. Now, I've got an armrest as well, which you might think, oh, so what, you get an armrest? You don't get an armrest in an Audi A1 as standard, but you do in a Polo. You've got basic aircon in here, 2 USB-Cs down here, loads of storage for your phone, these weird octagonal cup holder things. They should just be round, frankly. But otherwise, I really like it. The door cards are a little bit my first drum kit plasticky. But other than that, it's a really good cabin for the money. There is one annoying thing about this infotainment system that I forgot to mention. That's the fact you have a sat-nav button, but when you press it, it tells you to go and buy the sat-nav function because this is the entry-level model. Likewise, when you press the voice command button, it says you haven't paid for it. It's downloadable content, but for cars. If you're torn between the Ford Fiesta and the Volkswagen Polo, but you regularly use the back seats, just get the Polo because there's so much more room back here than the Ford. I'm 6'3" or 19 hands tall, same as Araminta here, and my knees aren't even touching the seats. I've got room for my feet, I've got room for my head, and it's just very comfortable. The middle seat is fine, it's nice and wide, but there is a big old hump here that you're going to get your hooves on. That's going to get annoying. So yeah, Minty will have to go in the front. I've got 2 USB-Cs. I've got little pockets here for putting maps and the high-vis jackets, things like that. And the door bins are a decent size as well. You can get a big bottle in those. Now, my final favorite thing is the Isofix points. They're uncovered, so there's no flaps to mess about with, no zips. You can just get your child seats in nice and easy. And there's room for them as well. It's honestly a bit of a TARDIS in here. I might have made some silly jokes about horses, but there's not much horsepower in this particular Polo. This is the 1-litre 3-cylinder petrol of 80 horsepower, but it doesn't have a turbocharger. It's basically the engine from the Volkswagen up. And it's not quite enough really for this car, and it's only got 5 gears. So on the motorway, it gets a bit wearing. You probably want the 1-litre 3-cylinder petrol with a turbo with either 95 or 110 horsepower. The 110 gets an automatic gearbox, and that engine is just fine in this car. And then there's the Polo GTI with a 2-litre petrol engine and about 200 horsepower, and that's just flipping fast. There are no hybrids, and there's no electric option either. Look how much room there is in this engine bay. I could fit my head in there, or Volkswagen, you could probably fit another 3 turbochargers in there. But anyway, that's enough about the engines on the Polo. Let's hit the open road, take it for a drive, and see if it's fun. There is absolutely no doubt that you're driving a Volkswagen when you're behind the wheel of the Polo, just because it feels grown up, it feels planted, it almost feels like its big brother, the Golf, and at motorway speeds it's quiet and refined, Apart from the fact that this one has only got 5 gears, so when you're in 5th gear at 70 miles an hour, you're doing about 3,500 RPM, which is fine until you accelerate slightly, then the engine gets quite noisy and you don't really go anywhere very fast. And in fact, that's just true of this engine at any speed. You have to work it really hard to accelerate. It makes quite a nice 3-cylinder noise when you're doing that, and I don't mind it. But if you want to do lots of motorway driving, get a turbocharged version. There is just no doubt about that. Now, in terms of the gearbox in this car, that does actually stand out because it's so easy to use. It's so light, and the clutch pedal is light. Unlike in some other 1-litre 3-cylinder engine cars, they can sometimes be a bit springy and kicking your foot off the pedal. No problems like that in this. It just feels really easy to use. You almost forget it's a manual. And in terms of safety, this car has got a 5-star Euro NCAP rating from 2022, so quite recent. So it's a safe car, and it's got things like automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist as standard. I really like this car. It feels grown up. It's easy to drive. It's easy to see out of. The only thing I'd say is it's not quite as fun to drive on a twisty road as a Ford Fiesta, but it's still very grippy, and I've been quite enjoying throwing it down some country roads in a way that you probably wouldn't if you've got your kids on board. But anyway, that's enough waffle about how this drives. I'm going to get Minty sitting back up and head back to Motorpoint for a conclusion. Come on, girl. In conclusion, the Polo is one of the best all-round small cars you can buy. It's got reasonably good practicality, lovely back seat space, a decent range of engines, although I'd avoid this slightly sluggish non-turbocharged 1-litre petrol, and it's got all the infotainment tech and general safety tech that you could possibly want or need. And it just makes you feel a bit posher than most other small cars. Now, there are some niggles. The plastics on the doors feel a bit too cheap for my liking, and it's got things like drum brakes at the back, but I wouldn't let that put you off. There are some alternatives. The Ford Fiesta is more fun to drive. The Skoda Fabia is a very similar car to this, but it's got a bigger boot, and the Seat Ibiza is again a very similar car, but looks a bit sharper and a bit more stylish. But all round, as a complete package, I'd pick the Polo. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Hit like if you have, and do subscribe to the Motorpoint channel. It's got plenty more nearly new car reviews coming soon. I want you to go down to the comments and suggest a name for the Motorpoint Pony of Justice. We'll see you next time.